Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I call the City of Detroit, Oregon City Council regular session and public hearing of July 11th, 2023 to order at 6:30 p.m. Council roll call.
Councilor Shepard?
Present.
Councilor Page?
Present.
Councilor Luke?
Present.
Councilor Tesdale?
Here.
Councilor Smith?
Present.
Councilor Nielsen? Mayor Trett?
Present. And could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you. Approval of the agenda, Council. We have one item to add under item number 9, resolutions, orders, and administrative action. Item A, mass gathering permit request. So that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended? Councilor Nielsen moves to approve the agenda. Second? Second, Councilor Shepard. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Special orders of business, the Sierra proposal. Councilor Tesdale.
So we hired an architectural design group. County granted us money for about $115,000. It's for the commercial business area. And part of the job that they are to do for us is to review the commercial code. And so I wanted to make sure that they had time to do that when it comes to reviewing the code and passing what McRae has done. I was surprised it was right now, so yes. Nancy, they're calling you.
There we go. Short-term rental committee. Nancy Smith, are you here?
Nancy Powell.
Not Powell, I'm sorry. Smith. Welcome. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Powell. I'm a member of the Short-Term Rental Committee. The Short-Term Rental Committee had their second meeting on June 19th, and in that meeting we continued discussions around the research from other resort towns and how they've handled STRs, which is short-term rental, for the benefit of its citizens, the STR operators, and prospective guests. We learned that all involve an application. This involves having an STR operator acknowledge and agree to communicate local ordinances related to noise, occupancy maximums, and parking for the renters. For Detroit, we would include campfire specifications and evacuation instructions. They also limit the number of SPRs in a specified area or neighborhood to avoid saturation. After our next meeting,
You got to put it right up, right?
After our next meeting, we'll make a report of our findings and recommendations to the council to evaluate. We're also looking at the most reasonable way for citizens to report issues with SPRs to the city. The reason for all this is not to over-regulate what doesn't need to be regulated, but to stay ahead of problems that other communities have experienced. It's our opinion that our STR operators do act responsibly now, but by establishing boundaries, we'll set reasonable expectations so all can enjoy their property permanently, or short-term owners or renters. So if I have any questions?
Nancy, everyone's having a hard time, even me hearing you. And we don't know if that mic's working or not, but if you could just, is it coming out of the speaker? where the volume is? Okay.
Yeah, we couldn't hear you from the back.
1, 2, is that better? Okay,
That's
I'm
good.
sorry. Yeah.
Do you want me to read it again?
Probably
happy to.
should, yeah, just,
Okay.
thank you.
That's good. Get it real close. Okay. So the short-term rental committee, is that better? Okay. Had their second meeting on June 19th, and in that meeting, we continued discussions around the research from other resort towns and how they've handled STRs for the benefit of its citizens, the STR operators, and its renting guests. So we've learned that all involve an application. This includes having the STR operator acknowledge and agree to communicate local ordinances relating to noise, occupancy maximums, and parking to their renters. For Detroit, we would also include campfire specifications and evacuation instructions. They also limit the number of STRs in a specified area or neighborhood to avoid saturation. After our next meeting, we'll make a report of our findings and recommendations for the council to evaluate. We're also looking at the most reasonable way for citizens to report issues with STRs to the city. The reason for all of this is not to overregulate what doesn't need to be regulated, but to stay ahead of problems that other communities have experienced. It's our opinion that the STR operators do act responsibly now, but by establishing boundaries, we'll set reasonable expectations so that all can enjoy their property permanently or short-term owners and renters. All right, you're welcome.
Thank you for the work. Okay. Moving along, item 7, public comments. This is a time, I know what most of you hear, this isn't it. This is the time set aside for comments from the public on matters not on the agenda. Commenters are limited to 3 minutes. Time may not be yielded. Questions from the council or staff to commenters shall not be counted against their allotted 3 minutes. Is there anybody who would like to address council on an item not on the agenda? Hearing none, we move along. Item 8, public hearing. We have 2 public hearings scheduled for this evening. Our first one is about our water rate study. We have Matt Del Moro, who is with HBH Engineering, our contract engineering firm. So, Matt?
So a number of months ago, early this year, around January, I forget the date, but the city contracted with us to run a study on water rates and how the fire may have impacted debt servicing payments from the larger water system improvements that started back in 2018. And that's for the system-wide distribution improvements. And the reason for that is costs for the water distribution system improvements were spread out versus the connections that existed prior to the fire. So council wanted to run some figures to see if number of connections may have changed or demographics may have changed post-fire that might impact water rates. We ran that study and found that the total revenue that the city is expecting to bring in based on the first 8 months of water revenue post-fire was $288,000 per year. Running that and contrasting that against expenses that the city has projected into the budget is $368,222. So that leaves a deficit of about $80,000. That deficit does not also include the requirements from Business Oregon, who is the debt servicing provider for the city for that distribution system improvements project, who has a requirement of 1.2 times the debt servicing figure to be added on top of water revenues to ensure that the system is able to address emergencies that come up and has sufficient water reserves. All in all, in order to maintain loan compliance, the city needs to bring in $396,000, tear over, $396,66, which puts the city at a substantial deficit of close to $110,000 per year. So we went about a rate study to find a way to increase water rates, water revenue in order to pay for the existing system expenses, operating and maintenance expenses, as well as to also cover the debt servicing and the required water system reserve. And that is when we developed a proposed rate structure. That information was included in council packets. That raised water rates roughly 40% for residential. Actually, that's across the board, residential and commercial, 40% increase to cover that cost of expense increases.
And this does not in any way reflect the cost of rebuilding the water plant?
Correct.
That
This
is
is
totally
not
separate.
related to anything. This has nothing to do with the fire outside of how the demographics of the city has changed post-fire. This is all for covering costs that were incurred prior to the fire. The city actually started back in 2018, I believe it was, yearly water rate increases that would anticipate, that would basically slowly increase costs, just kind of for reference, looking into the Business Oregon loan. Business Oregon had the city at $241,000 in revenue in the 2017 fiscal year, and then projecting forward at the time into 2018 through 2022, Business Oregon had anticipated that the city would be bringing in $252,000 in 2018, $328,000 in 2019, $337,000 in 2020, $372,000 in 2021, and $382,000 in 2022. That target figure of $382,000 is actually 2023 would have been the last year on that, with the figure to maintain Business Oregon compliance at $396,000. So that really has not changed much. However, after the fire, that really Business Oregon put a pause on some of their requirements. That pause was ending with the 2023 fiscal year. One of those pauses that they put in place was to not require the city to maintain a 20% of debt servicing water reserve fund. That has been, I don't want to say reinstituted yet. They said that pause would end 2022 and would be evaluated on a year-by-year basis beginning in 2023. I have not heard anything from Business Oregon, but that is factored into our rates, that in order for the city to maintain compliance with the with the loan, that they would need to institute that 20% of debt servicing. And the issue with not maintaining compliance with Business Oregon debt servicing is that Business Oregon is one of the main funders for municipalities in the state for providing funds for small rural communities to improve water infrastructure. And part of that loan, it was a $3.2 million loan, and there was $1 million of that was forgiven by Business Oregon, which is state lottery funds. So really, the city got $1 million in free money. Not maintaining compliance with the Business Oregon loan would put the city in a situation where Business Oregon may not fund future infrastructure projects within the city, which means that the city would then need to self-fund. So that's now, instead of providing $2.2 million to fund the city-wide infrastructure, you would need to provide $3.2. So not maintaining compliance would have a dramatic impact on future water rates, even more so than we're currently having. It would also require the city, instead of debt servicing, there's the potential that the city would have to self-fund in advance. So basically build up water reserves to pay for projects out of pocket. So that's the importance in maintaining compliance with Business Oregon. This really is, the rate increase is meant to get the city back into compliance and maintain compliance into future years.
Thank you. Questions from council before we open it? Okay, so then at this time, I will recess the council meeting at 6:45 and open a public hearing at 6:45 p.m. So we now open to the public for anybody who would like to comment about the water rate study just presented. could you come up here, please?
I need to talk to the microphone? Okay. May I read this?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, real close.
Okay.
And yes, of course, you can read. Thank you. If you'd start with your name and address, please.
Okay, my name is Sandra Kenny Loader, and I didn't, yes, it is. My name is Sandra Kenny Loader, and this is my sister who I'm co-owner with the property, Diane Kenny Sharp. We've been, I'm going to read this here with my glasses, excuse me. As longstanding property owners at Detroit over 40 years, we have supported this community economically. We feel there should be an equitable way to charge property owners for their water usage. We only physically use our property approximately 3 months of the year, and therefore will never use the 6,000 gallon per month allotment that you're proposing that we pay for. We are hoping there would be a tiered system that equitably charges customers for their actual usage, or perhaps a dormant, non-use season fee for those of us who use absolutely no water for approximately no months, or even averaging out the 250 gallon per month usage for low users over the year for the $60 fee, rather than stating if you go over 250 gallons in 1 month during a 12-month period, you're automatically knocked up to the $6,000 fee. For instance, we have used 398 gallons of the current 9,000 gallon allotment under the current water bill fee this past month. We would not expect that we will ever use the new 6,000 gallon allotment under the new proposed plan. And then you have large families and renters with numerous allowed guests using much larger amounts of water. This is not an equitable fee system. Why are we paying for everyone's use rather than our own personal lot usage? And then I have another question, and I don't know if you can answer this immediately. Do owners with multiple lots pay water, multiple lots together, pay water usage for one lot meter, or is each lot metered and charged independently? So anyway, there's just some inequitable things I see going on.
There, to answer that question, there's supposed to be a meter per residential
There is?
lot being used.
That is
period.
not what I have personally witnessed.
You can, it is against city, the rules in the city to run a hose from one property to the other.
Hose is one thing, but what about the underground systems that,
Well, it's the same thing. It's
Yeah,
a 1 meter per
know.
residential lot.
okay.
Yeah.
I personally have not witnessed, I have seen otherwise. I'm not an expert, of course, on meters, but anyway.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say. Thank you very much for listening.
Anyone else wish to address the water rate study? Okay. Hearing none, too many buttons. I close the public hearing on the water rate study at 6:49 PM and reopen the council meeting at 6:49 PM. Item 7, legislative amendment LA 22-01. McCray? While she's coming up, we have a sign-up list for people who would like to speak. If anybody did not get on that list that would like to speak, would you see Lindsay over there in the flowery shirt? Okay? Hi.
Good evening. Good evening, City Council. Can you hear me? Excellent. Good evening, City Council and members of the public. My name is McCray Carmichael, and I am the Community Development Director and a planner at the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments. I am here this evening for our hearing for Legislative Amendment 22-01. Mayor, I believe you have, Mayor Trett, I believe you have a statement.
You're right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The public hearing for LA 2201 that the City Council is about to open is conducted using a legislative process. A legislative process is used when amendments propose a law that would apply generally to the entire community. The purpose of the City Council's public hearing is to consider amendments to the City of Detroit's Development Code. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the City Council may either approve with revisions, deny, or take no action on the proposed amendments. If the amendments are approved, the City Council will adopt the ordinance providing an effective date for the amendments. The public hearing proceeds first with a staff report. This staff report is considered part of the record. After a summary of the amendments is presented, interested parties are given the opportunity to testify. Any party testifying before the council must give their name and address for the record. The public hearing is open. We are now ready for the presentation of the staff report.
Thank you. I'd like to enter into the record Legislative Amendment 2201 along with the staff report with Exhibit A, draft text changes with red strike, Exhibit B, the TAC, Technical Advisory Committee meeting dates and track changes, and Exhibit C, public comment sign-in sheet and notes from Planning Commission hearing on April 18th, 2023. In addition, you all should have received public testimony and comments that were received after the staff report was made available on July 3rd. So those are entered into the record also. The request that's before you tonight is proposed amendments to every chapter of the Detroit Development Code. A text amendment to the Detroit Development Code is a legislative amendment. Legislative amendments are policy decisions made by the council. They are reviewed under a Type 4 procedure in Chapter 4.1.6. The Planning Commission makes a recommendation to City Council regarding this. In September of 2021, the City Council authorized the COG, the Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, to make an application for a planning assistance grant to do a code audit and code amendment of the full development code. In November, we received notice from DLCD, the city did, that you all had received that funding source, and you gave direction to staff to begin a legislative amendment, a code audit and legislative amendment, hence Legislative Amendment 2201. What we started with was the City Council first determined that you wanted to have the Planning Commission serve as a technical advisory committee, and that Planning Commission would review the text with staff and consultants to determine proposed changes, areas of updates that you wanted to see, and other revisions. And we began that process in the beginning of 2022. So over the course of the year, we had several TAC meetings, 3 joint work sessions between Planning Commission and City Council, where we discussed items that we wanted your feedback and to keep City Council updated. So you all have been aware of the ongoing updates and the work that the TAC/Planning Commission has been doing over the course of the past year and a half. So, some details for the record. We had a Planning Commission hearing on April 18th of this year. Notice was posted for that meeting on the website, the Facebook page, and in the Canyon Weekly. Measure 56 notice was mailed to all property owners in the city in March, and DLCD notice was completed. At that time, Planning Commission held its hearing and made a recommendation for City Council to accept the changes as proposed in the text amendment and to move it forward to a new hearing date. We since have scheduled this meeting, posted notice in the Canyon Weekly, posted on the website, and made the staff report and the code updates available online on July 3rd. So at this point, I'd like to just review the criteria that you all are looking at in making a decision for a text amendment, and then I can answer any questions. There are 4 different criteria that we look at when making a decision. Section 4.1.6G, decision-making criteria. The decision by the City Council shall be based on the consideration of the following factors: the statewide planning goals and guidelines adopted under the Oregon Revised Statute for comprehensive plan amendments. Findings: this is only text amendments. We are not doing a comprehensive plan amendment as part of this. So while this criterion is not applicable, I still in my staff report went through all the goals of the statewide land use planning process and outlined how our development standards meet those objectives. So we believe this criterion is met. Comments from any applicable federal or state agencies regarding applicable statutes or regulations. Throughout the process, no comments were received from federal or state agencies regarding this proposal. Our review did go before DLCD, and along the way, DLCD participated in the TAC committee for our updates. Item 3, any applicable intergovernmental agencies and their comments. And with this, we received no comments along the way with intergovernmental agency. And finally, any applicable comprehensive plan policies and provisions of the code that implement the comprehensive plan. Compliance with Chapter 4.7 shall be required for comp plan amendments. And again, this isn't a comp plan amendment, but compliance with statewide planning goals and administrative rules have been met for the text amendment. So with that, we have all the sections of our code. Exhibit B has all our track changes. You've had this material available and we've reviewed it multiple times. I was not intending to go through every section that's proposed in the 240 pages of our development code and submit to you my staff report and findings. Can I answer any questions for you all this evening?
Any questions from council? Hearing none. Okay.
Would you like me to stay up here?
Please.
Okay.
Okay. So, at this time, here we go again. I will recess the city council meeting at 6:59 p.m. and open the public hearing on legislative amendment LA 22-01. Once again, we'll be calling on people who signed up to testify and go from there. Have to do this part too. This is the time set aside for comments from the public on LA 2022. On the agenda, commenters are limited to 3 minutes. Time may not be yielded. Questions from the council or staff to commenters shall not be allotted against the allotted 3 minutes. I would like to do this in 2 stages because we had talked previously about adopting the code after removing the RV section of the code for consideration next month. But we would like to have the organization with our downtown planning have a chance to look at it. So do I have a motion to let's do that later. Okay. Is there anybody here who would like to testify on any part of the building code that is not related to RVs? Any? Okay. And then we'll do the RV thing after that.
I'm just going to be short.
My
name is Larry
name?
Gesher.
Oh, okay.
My property's at 320 Detroit Road South.
Thank you.
Looking at the new revised ordinances regarding the development code, there's a lot there. And I guess I'm just wondering, is Detroit really ready for all this? Because it's kind of like a neighborhood CC&Rs. The minute that they're not enforced and some things are picked, some things aren't, they kind of go away. And it seems like we're biting off a lot at one time. And that's my only concern as a community, if we could really take on all this at one time and enforce it and control it. I think it's great to have a development code to control growth and what things are going to look like, but looking at this, there's a lot there. And I know a lot of people like natural landscaping in Detroit and seeing residential lots required to be 20% landscaped. I guess you could go through and define some natural landscaping as fitting some of that, but that's a lot. And I'm just concerned that we're going to take on a lot and not be able to keep up with it as things are coming in. And then you're going to get people pointing out that you didn't do it over here, but now you're trying to do it to me, and it all blows up. So that was all I wanted to bring forth. Thank you.
Thank you. So, moving on, now we'll be addressing the section regarding RVs. According to my list I have here, again, 3 minutes. Tina Russell.
Good evening, Mayor Trent and commissioners. My name's Tina Russell. I live on 135 Tumble, and I've been up here several times in probably the last 8 months, and in front of the Planning Commission. So here we are again on RVs. But I have to say, before I start, that I've met a lot of great people in the city of Detroit that I probably would have never have met prior to this. I appreciate your willingness to serve. You have a job to do for the city of Detroit. However, you must listen to the community. It can be a hard job, but the communication must get better. You have a lot of power, and you can make decisions for the future of Detroit. But don't forget why you all bought property here. You bought it because it's enjoyable up here, because Detroit is a recreational town. It's not too late to come to the table with all of us and listen. We can come up with a resolution and compromise that will benefit the community. I was really hoping we could have sat down prior to this and talked so both sides could understand where the other ones were coming from. Our group has created a proposal that gives some good talking points, which includes recommendations for setbacks, permits, square footage of lots, compliance, and guidelines for approval process. We hope that you will consider having a conversation with all of us and push out the ordinances on the RVs. Thank you.
Larry Gesher.
Good evening again, Councilor Trent and council members. Sorry I didn't address you appropriately last time. That was kind of off the cuff. I wasn't expecting to do that. I back up everything that Tina said. I understand that you guys have...
I'm sorry, it's redundant, but could you identify yourself and your address, please?
Larry Gesher, 320 Detroit Road South.
Thank you.
As I mentioned, I back up everything that Tina said. I understand you guys are in a position that has authority and power to make rules for a community. And I mainly want to talk tonight to help clarify a lot of things that we're hearing around town. I know you guys have an attorney here now too that can maybe help out too. Going all the way back to the statements that we're hearing that we're doing this because it's mandated by state and county codes. Having read the codes myself and reviewing with an attorney, everyone agrees that that's what the purpose of a city council is. It's to be able to make local rules, to be able to take state government. Even though we have rules above us, we can still modify rules to what the community wants, including RVs. No differently than what we've already done for ATVs and golf carts in the city streets. The city council has the authority to make rules as they see fit for the community. So I think that's the first thing to get clear, is that we're not doing this because we're mandated to do it. We're doing this because people have chose to do it. Secondly, I think that as Detroit community continues to grow, the future of the future property owners in Detroit often come from kids that are growing up with their families in RVs. That's their first stamp. I started coming to Detroit in the mid-'70s, going to the day use area in Mongold, using the day use when we used to have buoys there for skiing, and then eventually getting to the point where we're coming up here staying with friends, to the point now where we've bought property for our own family to come and enjoy and continue all the experiences that we've loved to enjoy about Detroit. But we need to get the facts straight so everybody's on the same page so we can have a civil conversation about what the plans are. I testified at the Planning Commission hearing. I heard the motion that was made. The motion that's represented in the agenda is not the motion I heard made at the Planning Commission. The motion I heard made at the Planning Commission was that we were going to revert back to the code as it was with the addition of additional septic requirements. There was discussions with McCray that night by the Planning Commission asking her specific things about if they were required to make changes. She said no, they didn't have to make changes. They could do what they felt they needed to do. So the motion was made and voted on and passed. It wasn't supporting the code as currently written, as proposed, as comes across in the current agenda item. So that's one thing. So I don't know if there's a recording of that. I haven't seen a recording of it, but I sat here and listened to it myself after I testified and I heard it being made, and now it's being represented as something else. Secondly, seeing people on the Planning Commission and potential commissioners that could potentially profit from getting rid of RVs in town is an unethical thing that needs to be looked at and considered when you're voting. Knowing some of the people, what they own and what they're doing, I think there's potential for a lot of exposure by individuals making these decisions when you're not abstaining from voting on some of them. Once again, I think just like Tina said, we understand regulations, we understand there's codes that are required, and I think that everybody wants Detroit to be a livable place. The beauty of what we do with a lot of RVs is they're seasonal, so they're not like dilapidated RVs that are sitting here year-round that aren't leaving. So that's one good thing. At least they got to be able to get down the road to get out of town to be able to bring them back the next year. So hopefully that will help keep up the neighborhoods. But I think that coming together as a community and figuring out a code that works for everybody is what we need to do, rather than trying to get mandated one size fits all that doesn't fit everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl Haynes.
Carl Haynes. I own 230, 240, and 250 Scott Avenue. I've been up here before and talked about how much I oppose this RV code change. Just 3 short years ago, I developed my properties, followed all my due diligence, everything I needed to do through the city, the added cost for city engineering, permits, electrical, the whole 9 yards. And now here we are 3 short years later, we're changing the code. I don't have full capacity as far as 3 and 4 units on all my lots, but I would like to maintain that. And for my friends and family, that's why I bought the property, and that's why I don't want this code to change. So, I do have one other issue that I'd like to bring up. On July 1st of this year, as my friends and family were enjoying a barbecue, there's been some videotaping on my property. I'm still looking into the legal actions of that. I'm not going to say who it is. I know who it is, but I do not want to make any false accusations. But I just want to say I don't appreciate it. So I'm a very approachable guy. I have a lot of friends in this town that I've made over the last 10 years. And if you have a problem with me or my property, come on my property and talk to me. Let's sit down, have a drink, talk it over. That's all I ask.
Thank you.
A little more emotional. So I'm Tina Emery. I'm speaking on behalf of myself and Eric Emery. We have property at 270 Front Street. And I just want to read the letter that I wrote. I too was at the meeting that Larry's speaking of, and I was completely shocked to find out it turned out a little bit different than the way it seemed to be voted for that night. So I wrote this letter. I've sent it to you guys, and it's from both Eric and I. We are writing to you about your choosing to change the use of our property in regards to RVs. It's deeply concerning to us as property owners, both financially and emotionally. After enjoying Detroit for many years in our camper, we purchased property in Detroit. Upon that investment, we were able to have seasonal RVs stay with us. Having this ability opened up doors to allow our family and friends to enjoy the Detroit community with us. This was exciting to us because in the years past, we were graciously allowed to do this on several friends' Detroit properties. As a result, we decided to move forward and purchase so that we could offer the same grace to others. Now there is a push to change the existing ordinance, which incredibly frustrates us as homeowners and members of the Detroit community. There has been multiple reasons that continue to change, given by council as to why, but none of those reasons have proven to be true. It seems to be more of a classist approach with a self-serving discriminatory motive. It's sad to think that our city council would think that shrinking its city's population down during its most profitable time of year could possibly be a good idea. I can only imagine how the few businesses in town must feel about this proposal. In speaking with them, RVs make up a large portion of their business, especially during the summer months. Every RV up here is a potential property owner if they're treated right. That's how we became property owners and how we hope to help build Detroit into an even bigger, stronger, more inviting community. We never imagined that someone could think that taking away a property owner's ability to use their property to its fullest purchase potential would be a smart decision, or one that would have potential to create divide. People should be able to use their properties as purchased under the current guidelines. In speaking with an attorney, I can assure you that this is definitely an issue many are able and willing to fight. None of us are interested in losing the full potential, or just as important, the family-friend accessibility potential of the property we've purchased. Sadly, many of our friends and neighbors will suffer from this change, some to the point of leaving our community. We strongly encourage the City Council to rethink this change. It does not have to happen.
Christine Rasmussen.
Hi, I'm Christine Rasmussen. Our address is 430 Santiam Avenue. We're at the end of Santiam. That's tough. Okay, so you've probably seen me up here before. We bought our property in Detroit to share with our family. We have 3 daughters and their families. Together we have my husband and I, and 16 children and grandchildren. We wanted them all to be with us in Detroit, so that's why we bought a big property. 3 acres is quite large for 4 RVs. When we first purchased this property, the city guided us all the way through. City of Detroit said, no, you can't put in an RV park because you've got to do this and you've got to do that. So, okay, what can we do? Well, you can change it from commercial to residential. So we did, following the city's instructions. We changed it to residential, and then they told us we needed to build a residence because it couldn't be residential if it wasn't a residence, and we'd have to remove our barn. I get a little emotional about this. It took us 9 years to get to where we're at today. So we've been through a lot of hoops with the city, and the city told us that the only way we could have our 4 family RVs on our 3 acres was if we were residential and had a house on it. So we did that, and now you're trying to take it all away. We put in all the infrastructure for those RVs. We paid for all of that. We paid for the change of the zoning. We paid for all of this. So I'm expecting that maybe somebody will be paying us back if this gets changed. Because we have a large family and we want to use our property. We're not harming anyone. We're definitely living up to the setbacks and the noise ordinances and anything else. And my suggestion would be leave the RV ordinances or codes or whatever you call them the same and hire an enforcer. Code enforcer would solve every problem this city has. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Cook.
Rasmussen, I can't read either, so, yeah.
Good evening. So my husband John and I own 2 lots, 330 and 340, Detroit Road South. He's sick tonight, or he would be here. Owning property in Detroit started probably, we've been married 35 years, and it started pretty much right away by this little teeny red cabin. It was down along the river right by the Fifes. I don't know if, or down by the lake by the Fifes. Tiny little thing worth $25,000, which could have been $1 million at that time. We couldn't buy that, and we've dreamed for years of buying property. 2017, we fulfilled that dream. We looked at all the ordinances carefully because we're RV owners, and we bought Fred and Martha Taylor's little old trailer with a big 1,500 square foot shop and garage my husband was in love with, and we would have lived happily ever after like that. We were so excited. We knew there was room for our friends and family to come up in RVs, and life was good until, as we all know, what happened in September of 2020. Lots of things are messing with our dreams right now. I listened to some of the, just little sound bites from the short-term rental committee, which seems a little ironic that we're starting that up and they're talking about the need for that when we're kind of wanting to do the same thing and not short-term rental, but have a place for our friends and family. She mentioned resort town. Yes, it is. It's not a subdivision. There's lots of different size lots. This is a resort town. Housing is short. It is dangerous for people to come up to these events and try to drive down the canyon. We need safe places for people to stay. She mentioned not over-regulate. Yeah, I think far majority, if not everybody in this room, follows all the present guidelines that have been in place since 2017. I'll read you what I sent in writing, so you might have had a chance to look at this already. But we're in opposition to all but one of the presently proposed development codes changes. We do not oppose the proposed change to allow landowners to occupy one RV year-round, which apparently is required by state law anyway for the 2020 victims. But that wasn't really the dog in the fight. Everybody here is talking about seasonal usage. We strongly oppose the other ones that would significantly limit the seasonal usage of friends and families in RVs on private residential zone properties. We support the currently allowed 2 RVs per lot, no permits, no fees, and the additionally allowed 3 or 4 RVs per lot with permits, reasonable fees that were in place until the 2014-23 council meeting. We're fine with this, adequate setbacks and hookups. Why do we feel so strongly about this? We feel that any change like this is harming the sheer survival of this recreation community and its struggling businesses. Um,
Okay.
RVs provide housing. for
I'm
fam-
sorry, that's your time.
It sounded like, oh,
Yeah, so.
wow.
Sorry about that.
Your testimony will be submitted into the record and the counselors have it. What you're reading, you've submitted in writing, right?
Yes.
Yes. So this is available to the counselors to
And-
review.
And we have received a lot of those already. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I appreciate it. Okay. And I'm not sure, Dave? V.E.? Thank you. Lee Lehman.
Hi. Dear City Council, my name is Lee Lehman. First, I have to tell you how much I love this town.
Could you give your address, please, Lee, for the record? Sorry.
What's that?
Could you gave your name, but could you give your address for the record?
Yes,
Thank you.
215 Patton Road North, Detroit. First, I have to tell you how much I love this town and was greatly affected by the fires. I lost everything. The Cedars restaurant, the Meadows, the Wolf Lodge, and the Cougar Den. All my residual income. But what saddens me now is the proposed changes to the city code regarding RVs. The spirit of this town has always been about family, friends, everything, enjoying the outdoors, camping, RVing, s'mores, fire pits, teaching our kids to fish and ski and boating. People bought property up here so they could camp, invite family and friends to stay. I own 9 properties. 6 are commercial, which I'm trying to put a plan together that best enhances this town. The other 3 are multi-dwelling. I followed all the regulations and made them friends and family friendly. Cost a lot of money. And hard work, which I won't be able to use for that purpose. Every day people come over and tell me how inviting my place looks. Do not change the code. For this town, it is the spirit of Detroit. The Lehmans have been a big part of this town for a long time, over 75 years. We've moved the Cedars from the old town, now under the bottom of the lake. David built Mountain High grocery store and started the fishing derby. We are still in recovery from the fires, and the infrastructure is still being built. To limit potential investors and supporters of this town is insane. The slogan on the Cedars sign for years was friendliest place by a damn sight. It seems like it's not anymore. I have a question. Why is the RV code changing? I've been told it's a state thing, or I've heard people say soon there'll be no RVs. What is wrong with RVs? They are the people who just like to camp in style. Some RVs cost more than a house. They just want to support this community. They love the recreational destination of Detroit Lake. I don't know how many hours I've spent trying to make this town beautiful. Pam and I started growing concerns.
And Lee, I'm sorry, but that's your time.
Oh. Should have spoke first.
Again, if you would give your written testimony to staff, that will be in the record. Okay, thank you so much. And now we have Sandra Kinney Loader. Thank you. Moving along. Corey Baker.
My name's Corey Baker. I've met most of you at one time or another. We have 220 Lake Crest. We've been here since 1970, so we kind of have a vested interest in this place of 53 years. I currently bought one across the street, 115 Lake Crest, because I had a lake view, and it's available. I'm planning on being here for a long time, and I'm not planning on allowing the usage that I purchased this property with to be changed. I'm not planning on stopping if this thing gets voted in. Then it just goes to the next level. I understand I've read the ordinances. I don't believe they're true. I've talked to different council members. It's not really clear even to the council members without better legal advice. So we're having to hire attorneys out of our own pocket to fight attorneys that are actually paid for out of public funds. We haven't had one good meeting from the city council, which I've asked numerous times from numerous people, to have a group of us allowed to speak more than 3 minutes, and then we're basically shoved back out the door. I feel that every piece of property up here is a pretty big investment. I know our family's got a lot invested. I know that there's a lot of people here that don't agree with the direction that this council's going, and I don't know how to put it other than we all have a voice, and we are all allowed to vote. And next year, you'll see the voting probably double in this town, and people that are trying to make changes that we don't agree with will probably not be here next time we vote. And it might get changed for a short period of time, but it's not going to get changed permanently, because we will vote. That's the American way, and we will get people in here that are going to vote for the people. And I think you could ask this larger group of this session out here, and I think they'll all say that they're more than willing to vote to have the way we were able to buy our property and the laws that we told, or the rules that we could have with our RVs. At the end of the day, we will win. And we won't stop until we do, because winning first stage will not be the end of it. And the rest of this stuff, to be honest with you, probably doesn't matter. I said it before, and it doesn't, it's my 3 minutes. But there's so many silly things about this. I've had a conversation the other day, which I did appreciate, 2 hours. He took out of his time, a council member, to talk to me about this, and I appreciate his time. Silly things like 500 feet between RV trailers. Really? That's the stupidest thing. How it even got into this session in the first place. I'm a contractor, been for 40 years. We can be 5 feet off of a property line. 5 feet, I can have a house and a house. How are you guys, I don't want to point fingers, but how did this even get to this point? Extension cords. Everybody's an extension cord. You can go through Kaiser, Salem, anywhere else. You can hook up to an extension cord. And isn't the ordinance saying to stop extension cords? I mean, there's so much silliness to this. How did it even get to this point? I mean, common sense has got to come in here somewhere, somehow. So anyway, I don't want to even go into personally how I feel any more than structurally, if this gets voted back in, we have the right and we have the ability to get it voted back out. And all it's going to do is divide Detroit more. So unless you're really sure that this ordinance is legal, I'd probably get it fixed quickly. Okay.
Thank you. And Kimberly Tyler.
Good evening. Kimberly Tyler, 210 Lake Crest Drive. I'm a mother of 9, and I'm a grandmother. I'm also a national business owner and a member of the Detroit community. Along with everybody else, I disagree with the proposed change to the current RV code. I believe the change would be detrimental to the city of Detroit. Instead of pushing people away, we should be opening doors, allowing people and RVs in to capitalize on the revenue that these RVs produce. We've always spent our summers in Detroit, and we were really looking forward to investing in the community and opening a business or two. I believe that sewers and paved streets should take precedence over changing the RV codes, and this is what will strike the attention of the developers and investors, not to mention people from other communities who want to come here, own property here, and build here. Tell me, would you want to invest in building a hotel on a gravel road with no sewer? We need to work together to build back this town. This town needs RV revenue right now, along with weekend events and festivals, especially during this peak season. I've heard council members and Detroit Lake Foundation member wants Detroit to be like Sun River or Tahoe. With what amenities? We won't even have a convenience store if RVs aren't allowed. What will be the attractions? Where will people stay? I found it very hard to trust a temporary RV code or trust that a temporary RV code will be put into place rather than trying to slip another one by us while we're home working during the off season, making a permanent change without our input. It was mentioned that we table this subject for the summer and address it at a later date. We can't let this happen. We all believe it's a ploy to not have us here or hope we'll not be paying attention so council members can make whatever changes they feel necessary. The council is supposed to support and represent the city, the people, and the community. It's sad that the people feel the city councils have their own agenda, and that's not in the best interest of the community. Please help our community, but also research Measure 37. Thank you.
Thank you. Gary King.
Good evening. Gary King, 145 Clifford. I wasn't planning actually to speak tonight. The only points I'd like to throw out there, myself and my company, we were here at the beginning, and I got to watch myself because I get pretty emotional over it. We got to look through basically the lens of hell when this thing burnt. And we had many folks crying on our shoulders. I can't even go into it. It was an intense situation, one of the most intense projects I've probably ever taken on in my career. I look at what this council is doing right now. I see an agenda that is for certain people's properties to go up in value. You have old families sitting here that don't have that salary cap that some people do. They're natives. They're never going to be there. You also have an economic value of tourism. And here we are trying to chastise these people that are trying to promote you guys to build a better town. I see different issues in my own personal opinion. I see rebuilding, fantastic things happening. Where's the water discharge going to go? I've heard nothing about it. That you got a lot of code situations that need to be dealt with. The revenue source that you only have right now is not the one to go after. A town, we have a post office, and you have a ton of people in this town promoting, trying to get it built back up. Don't chastise the people that are here for you guys. Thank you.
That is the last name I have on the list. So I will close this public hearing at 7:35 p.m. and reopen. Yeah, I'm sorry. Sure, come on up. What's
I'm Debbie Bowman, and I live at 195 Mackey Lane, and we have 5 lots up there. Next month, I'm going to really be prepared. I wasn't prepared, but I had to say something. I have permanently lived here for 45 years. And prior to that, came up here for many, many years. Nothing has been said about homes being built on these properties and the taxes that come with the homes. Property taxes aren't being paid by trailers. And we need homes. The community wants homes. There's a lot of permanent people who live here, who have lived here for many, many years. And we don't want it turned into a trailer park. We want residents who are going to be here, who are going to volunteer, who are going to get involved with the community. Next month, I will be more prepared, and you'll hear from me next month. But please, don't be overwhelmed. And thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thank you. So I will adjourn the public hearing at 7:37 and reopen council meeting at 7:37 p.m. Thank you all for your input, and it is in the record. Matt, were we supposed to vote on water rate tonight? Did you want to vote on the water rate tonight, or was that report more? Okay. Let me play with that. Okay. Moving along to resolutions, orders, and administrative action. There has been discussion amongst council to resume 2 meetings a month. Second.
Mayor.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Mayor.
Yes.
You're going to want to go back up the bus here a sec. You're going to want to keep the hearing open to the 8th. Because
that's right. I'm sorry.
You want to keep the hearing open for the 8th for the entire ordinance proposed change, including the RV section. So if we could have you restate that.
Okay.
And then for the record.
Okay. So for the record, I am carrying the public comment section over to, oh geez, I can't even talk to myself for 3 minutes. And I can't find the dumb button. There. Sorry about that. So we are going to carry over public testimony on LA 20-22 until August 8th for further testimony and deliberation of the proposed
That's correct.
ordinance. Thank you. Is that better? Now I reopen the public hearing, or the regular council session. Resolutions, orders, and administrative action. There's been some talk amongst council to resume under the emergency ordinance. Our charter says we can go, we meet the second Tuesday of the month. Under the state of emergency we are currently under still from the fires, we have the option of adding a second council meeting. In the past, that was the fourth Tuesday of the month. Do I have a motion to reestablish a second council meeting on the fourth Tuesday of each month? So moved. Councilor Smith moves. Second? Second, Councilor Nielsen. Discussion? Recorder, call the roll.
Councilor Shepard?
Aye.
Councilor Page?
Aye.
Councilor Luke?
Aye.
Councilor Tesdale?
Aye.
Councilor Smith?
Aye.
Councilor Nielsen?
Aye.
Mayor Trett?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. So we will establish, trying to get to here. So our next council meeting will now be, instead of a work session, Tuesday, July 25th, 6:30 p.m. in the council chamber. And I would propose, Matt, if it's okay, that we put that on that agenda. Okay, thank you. Mass gathering permit. We have a request for a mass gathering permit from the Detroit Lake Foundation for the evening of July 29th, 2023 at the city park. All their information, insurance, and is in line. This would be for the Scotty Alexander concert, I presume. So do I have a motion? Councilor Nielsen moves to approve the mass gathering permit for the Detroit Lake Foundation on July 29th, 2023. Second? Second, Councilor Shepherd. Discussion? Recorder, call the roll.
Counselor Shepherd?
Aye.
Counselor Page?
Aye.
Counselor Luke?
Aye.
Counselor Tesdale?
Aye.
Counselor Smith?
Aye.
Counselor Nielsen?
Aye.
Mayor Trett?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 10, consent calendar. We'll be voting to approve the minutes of the Detroit City Council special session budget meeting, a hearing on June 8th, 2023, the regular session on June 13th, 2023, the special session public hearing on June 21st of 2023, and the work session of June 27th, 2023, and to approve to pay the bills. Any comments or concerns about anything on that consent calendar?
Motion to approve consent calendar.
Motion, Counselor Page, to approve the consent calendar. Second? Just sec. Second, Counselor Luke. Discussion, Counselor Shepherd.
During my council report, it said it was inaudible, and that was an important part of the meeting. I brought it to the council that I was putting in for another grant for paving, SCA grant system, SCA ODOT grant, and it was going to be called the multi-street loop project, 2nd Street, Lake Crest, and 3rd Street. And it was inaudible, but for the record, we need to put that in there because it was a council decision to approve that particular project.
All right, thank you. Further? If not, Recorder, call the roll on the consent calendar.
Counselor Shepherd?
Aye.
Counselor Page?
Aye.
Counselor Luke?
Aye.
Counselor Tesdale?
Aye.
Counselor Smith?
Aye.
Counselor Nielsen?
Aye.
Mayor Trett?
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving along to staff reports. Matt, do you have anything else? Okay. Okay. Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, thank you.
So that project is actually still in a little bit of a holding pattern. We are working with Marion County to sort out some issues with the building permit. They are wanting some forms to be filled out between Department of Forestry and U.S. Forest Service. So getting county legal counsel, U.S. Forest Service, property and legal counsel, and Department of Forestry counsel together to make sure they're all good with the paperwork is got pretty much as the contractor in a holding pattern. They're ready to start laying the foundation for the building right now, but those three agencies need to get that sorted out before they'll actually permit it. But otherwise, that
Matt,
project's
did you
moving
get
along.
the with that Zoom meeting with forestry?
I did not.
Okay, we have a invite for that.
Okay.
I'll get with you on that.
Okay.
It's this next week.
All right. Well,
So-
that's the update I have for that. Otherwise, the contractor's just ready to go and waiting to get out there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate it. City Recorder.
I don't have anything to add.
Thank you. Planning.
Since I'm not up here too often, I thought I'd take the opportunity to update on two components that we've been working on at COG related to planning. One was, you remember, the funding we received for Gates and Detroit from DLCD to apply for floodplain development. So there were several properties that were within the floodway, and we're going to have to obtain floodway development permits through the rebuild. I don't know if you all recall this, but there's about 45 properties in Detroit, but that they aren't actually in the floodway. So there's the mapped floodway by FEMA, and so right after the fire, in response, FEMA let us know that even though the city was going to be able to rebuild for substantial damage purposes for FEMA, you were going to have to go through all the permitting still. So that property owners who were within the floodway were going to have to hire an engineer, hire a surveyor, looking at several $1,000s. So we were able to obtain, COG was able to obtain funding on behalf of DLCD, and all the properties within the floodway got LOMA's, letter of map amendments, completed for them, and that project has been completed. So I wanted to give you an update on that. And also our DEQ septic permit program, so we've had 120 applications throughout the canyon for septic systems for reimbursement that were impacted by the fire. So from a planning standpoint, I haven't gotten to talk to you all and update, but I wanted to let you know that many property owners in Detroit have been able to access that residential program. If anyone in the room tonight is hearing about it, they're welcome to reach out to us at the COG in Marion County, and we can help property owners who were impacted, whose properties were damaged by, their septics were damaged by the fire. They're potentially eligible for reimbursement. So, not completely planning, but a little. I wanted to get up here and talk about it. Yes.
McRae is, I don't know his last name because I can't pronounce it very well, but Silas. Is he on another project and now it's a different person that's kind of...
Yes, Laura Conroy, who's also involved with the North Santiam Sewer Authority project, which is a joint sewer project for Mill City, Gates, Detroit, and Idana, to be considering how we get sewer treatment up here. She is also the project manager for our DEQ septic permit. Okay, so Laura Conroy.
Thank you.
Or myself. You can also reach out to McRae Carmichael and I will help.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Marion County Sheriff, have a report? Thank you. Okay. U.S. Forest Service, Michelle King or anybody from this Forest Service? I didn't, just had to ask. Edina Detroit Rural Fire Protection District, anybody here? Don't see anybody. North San Diego Sewer Authority, do you want to make that your report? Okay, we've heard from SDR. City Clerk, you have the takeaways for us. Yeah. Who's doing what? Thank you. Unfinished business, this is things that we just want to keep on the calendar that we're addressing as we have time. Ordinance 251 regarding parking, policy on water meters, getting direction from McCray on that. Looking at a camping ordinance, that has to do with new rules, state rules in effect on homelessness. City Hall rental fees, and then Larry Rupp would like a resolution for the marina excavation project. Those are things that are pending, and we will stay on, get to as we have time. Council reports. Councilor Shepard.
The East Avenue paving and pedestrian bike path walkway project should start this month. It's going to be a great safety corridor when it's done, because right now there's no safe way for people to go to walk to downtown Detroit from East Detroit, and it'll fit right in with that crosswalk. So I'll be glad when this thing's done. It's been a long time coming. I was kind of hoping that Andy Sigmund would get the bid, because he's done so much for this town. He's donated thousands and thousands of dollars to the 4th of July fireworks and other city events. But I think Jesse, I wanted to keep the money in the canyon. That was another reason why I was rooting for Andy. But Jesse Rodriguez has a pretty good reputation, so it should come out okay. Plus, he was a little cheaper, and I'll have a little more of a cushion in case we have some change orders. I'm starting work on the 2024 Small City Allotment Grant from ODOT. It's $250,000, and it's going to include, I call it the multi-street loop project, consisting of 2nd Street, Lake Crest, and 3rd Street. Got an issue on Scott Avenue. There's 7 or 8 large red slash piles piled up near the top of Scott, and it's a severe fire threat. If somebody throws a cigarette in there at the wrong time, we're going to have a fire running up the hill, and I'm surprised we haven't gotten the complaint already. We had a request for a street light in a dark cul-de-sac at Meldar Guard Court, and we're going to try to get that installed this month. That'll cost $4,300 out of the street fund, but it'll bring some light to a very dark cul-de-sac. Let's see here. Oh, I'd like to check with the ODOT coordinator in the Detroit district. I'd like to crack seal Detroit Avenue. The last time it was paved, it was from a $25,000 ODOT grant, and it was 900 feet long, 60 feet wide. It was 54,000 square feet, which came out to about 80 cents a square foot, 43,000. You never see that again, but it's starting to crack, and crack sealing will extend the life of the asphalt. Once you start getting cracks and you get water in there and freezing and thawing, and you start getting potholes and it starts deteriorating. So their policy is, we have a working agreement with ODOT. They've worked on our streets before, they've sanded before and other things. But the highway comes first, so if they're crack sealing somewhere on the highway and they have some time, they could possibly do that, and it would be cheaper than having a contractor do it. Anyway, I'll see how that goes. And I would like to do some more striping in town. We got some done last fall, but the striping has really taken a beating since the fire, and there's some other areas that need to be striped. Okay, I need to get something off my chest here. I've been on the council for a quarter of a century. It'll be 25 years in January. And I had some questions I would have liked to talk to the governor about, but apparently I guess I wasn't in the in-crowd or something, but I wasn't invited. But I wanted to give her a little input, and I think the whole council really should have been there. I think we missed an opportunity, but I don't know. It seems like there's a culture of exclusion, I guess. I can't think of a better way to put it, but this kind of excluding people from the governing process just causes division and dissension, and I think we need to all work together. I've always, this isn't a hallmark of a healthy democracy when you exclude some people from the governing process. And I don't think that's what the founding fathers had in mind 247 years ago when their vision of this country. Anyway, I've always been for community unity and in the spirit of the Cowboy Thanksgiving. I got it off my chest.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
And I'll go out of order. I'm going to tell you, the governor, we didn't have a choice. The governor told us the kinds of people they wanted to talk to in terms of a business owner, somebody who'd lost their home, a business owner or somebody to do with businesses, and then me. So we weren't given the opportunity to make it a public meeting. It was, this is what her staff is here for. She wants to hear what's going on in a very specific amount of time. So it wasn't the council or the mayor going, we're not going to invite people. It was the governor and her staff saying, here's who the people we would like to address. And it wasn't by name. It was just simply the thing they wanted to hear about. So just so you know, it wasn't somebody here saying no. That's what we went through. Thank you. Councilor Page.
So last month we produced 1,852,000 gallons of water. We have unaccounted for out of that 343,000 gallons. We had some water leaks. We did some fire department flushing of hydrants. I believe we've got the water leak chased down pretty well under control. Over the 4th of July weekend, our water capacity in the tank dropped down to just above the 50% level. That was not due to leaks. No leaks have been detected at this point. Extreme usage. So there are some watering things that need to be kept in mind as far as your lawns, your greenery, and what have you. It's imperative at this point, based on us having a 200,000 gallon tank capacity and producing 70 gallons per minute, that we keep things under control on heavy use weekends as far as our water goes. We achieved a point of severe concern during that weekend as to whether we were going to be able to provide adequate fire protection in the event there was a structure fire or any other kind of fire. And that's right on my radar. I am extremely concerned about that. So we are trying to acquire funding for an additional plant being brought in. I think we're going to move forward with that no matter what, but it doesn't come cheap either. FEMA's giving us a little bit of a runabout on that, and so there's been certainly a delay with that. But I have concern for our community in terms of that tank up there needs to stay 80% and above, and heavy use weekends starting on later in the afternoon of the 4th of July weekend of Wednesday of that week. I was on a constant watch on that, and you could watch it every 4 hours drastically draining, and then it took us over a week to come back up from where we were at to get back to the 90% level. So that's of serious concern here, and we're doing everything we can water-wise to maintain the ability to run everything that everybody wants to run, but keep in mind we do have limitations, and the sun's shining, and try and keep your watering and your water usage respectable until we can get past this particular period of time. Beyond that, Matt, water-wise, do we have anything more that we can throw in there? It's all stretching dollars. That's you know, that's the reality here. And we lost a huge amount of capacity with the fire, and our water quality remains good. There is some turbidity coming out of Brighton Bush. We're no longer taking water out of Mackey Creek at this point, but we don't have a permanent system yet, but we're on our way. So that's what I can let you know about the water system.
Thank you. Councilor Luke.
Mostly the only issues at hand right now are the bathroom doors at the park, which just had someone meet with me tonight again, working on getting those fixed. But the steel frames the hinges are breaking out from the inside, so it needs a portable welder to go on site and take care of that. And the drinking fountains and the faucets were supposed to be fixed weeks ago, and I've got 3 more calls into the plumber, and if I don't hear back from him this week, I don't know what to do, because we slated him to do it with some grant money situation. So I'm going to have to open up a can this week and get right on top of it. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilor Tesdale.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank all the volunteers that made the 1st of July and that weekend happen. The Detroit Lake Foundation, DeLabra, the Fire Department Volunteer Association. It was a lot of work, and super thankful for the few volunteers that we get. The parks have a heavy use right now. We're struggling to keep them supplied. It's costing the city a lot of money. We don't have a solution. We're looking for one. There was vandalism that happened over that weekend. The fire department, when we were doing the pancake feed, we had restrooms out there. They got tipped over, vandalized. So a lot of the money we earned for the Volunteers Association has to go back into buying those. So if you guys could spread the word, keep track of your kids. I'm assuming these are kids, maybe middle schoolers, a little older. But with the heavy use and the capacity that Detroit is at right now, and we're concerned that people aren't paying attention to the city. And, you know, living here full time and being concerned about water and protecting our structures, there are people here that hide out from that busyness, and I just want to respect them and make sure that we're keeping control of anybody that might be causing trouble.
Thank you. Councilor Nielsen. Counselor Smith.
Thank you, Mayor. Sergeant Cross pretty much took everything I had. However, I would like to thank everybody that reacted so quickly on the fire next to Detroit Lake Marina. I know Mr. Emery, from what it sounded like, went and took Smokey's fire extinguisher and put on there. So thank you for all of that and everybody that reacted to that. Thank you guys so much for being vigilant and on top of things. So thank you.
Mayor's report. I'm not going to go a whole lot tonight. The only good things that have happened for me this month, I was at a function last Thursday, and we've been working with, trying to work through this, what's going on with FEMA in terms of them re-examining supposedly funding they've already approved. And Congresswoman Chavez Dreamer happened to be there, and so I walked up to her and said, I have a problem. Explained to her what the problem was with FEMA. She said, so happens that's one of my committees. Here's the guy you have to talk to. She called over her aide. I received an email from him last night asking for particulars so they can make a phone call to FEMA. Don't know if it'll do any good, but that's what they're willing to do. As mentioned earlier, the Governor Kotek was in town on June 22nd. We received a call from her staff, and it was basically, we would like to have a few people come in, somebody to do with the business community, a homeowner who lost their home, and basically me and the water project, what was going on there. We had an hour and a half with her. We spent 45 minutes here talking about the different things that the city's facing, and then she spent 45 minutes with a homeowner who is rebuilding. So I felt it was a good meeting. She was very receptive. Who knows what's going to happen with it, but she did obviously listen and had some meaningful questions. So that was, other than that, it's just been day-to-day stuff. Other business? Upcoming meetings. Now the next regular city council session will be July 25th, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. here at the Detroit City Hall. And then the regular city council session with a public hearing on August 8th. I think that is, and not the 11th. August 8th, again at the Detroit City Hall at 6:30 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Councilor Luke moves to adjourn. Second? Second, Councilor Smith. Discussion? We are adjourned at 8:15. Thank you, everyone, for coming.